PJ,
Yeah.
real privilege, pleasure to be sitting with you, having read the book. Bit of a wild one, weren't you?
Yeah, I was. Can't deny that.
Growing up, from dropping sticks to getting stabbed yourself.
Yeah.
Talk about how the streets played a big part in forming, shaping your character.
Now's
No,
or
no, no, back then.
recent?
Yeah, we're gonna go on a journey.
Okay, so the streets. Okay, from age like 8, 9, 10, I was looking at the elders who were like 14, 15, 16, seeing what they were doing, and they were like, committed teenage gangsters, if you like, and I got attracted to that scene, and I wanted to be like them. They were perhaps my earliest role models, and I wanted to be a committed teenage gangster, and so I followed that path. And I became a juvenile delinquent from the age of 10. I got convicted for possession of firearms at the age of 11. I got taken into care at the age of 11 years old and spent 4 or 5 years in the care system. I think, no, 4 years in the care system. The care system back then was quite brutal. I was the subject of racism, child abuse, physical abuse, mental, sexual abuse, you name it. I experienced that whilst being in care. And so, I used to abscond from these various different care establishments and return back to my ends. Northwest 10 in Harlesden. Couldn't sleep at home because the police would be looking for me there. So I would sleep at friends and so forth. And then there was that spiral, that behaviour took me further into criminality. And I was a committed thief at that time, and I just kept on getting arrested and charged and convicted and being returned to juvenile establishments, etc. And then as I progressed, I think, I got stabbed when I was 14 years of age. I was on a life support machine. It was touch and go whether I lived or not. That was very painful to see, for me to see my mum see me in that state. Bless her. And but I continued that life of being that juvenile gangster. I glorified it. I wanted to be part of it. I was committed to the cause, so to speak. And during that time, of course, when you're living that type of lifestyle, of course, your enemy is the police, and they would brutalize me in very vicious ways whenever they arrested me. Not all the times they arrested me, but sometimes when they arrested me, they would brutalize me. And sometimes they didn't arrest me; they just brutalized me and then just went back their business. And that was, us black teenagers growing up in Harlesden in the late 1970s. That was just that. We just took it as, and that was that really. And it wasn't until I'd gone through the young offenders institutions, the detention centre twice. I went to Felton Borstal, Rochester Borstal, Finnemore Wood Borstal, and then I went further on to Chelmsford Prison. And when I'd done all the prison circuits, and I ended up in Portland, I was in my cell once and actually thought that I was going to lose my sanity. And because I've seen so many people of my generation, my peers, enter the criminal justice system sane and leave the criminal justice system literally insane. And I thought, wow, so my brother, that happened to my brother, Aaron, and some really close friends of mine. And one night I thought, P, this is your turn now. This is your turn. And it was the strong belief that you're not going to when you wake up in the morning, you're not going to be the same person. And coming from a Christian background, when I was from age 4 to I think 8 or 9, we used to go to church 4 or 5 times a day, every single Sunday. So coming from that religious background, I thought, you know what, I need to reach out to God. And I just went to the prison, where the windows are. You got the bars by the window, and I held on to the bars. And I just had that really direct, no-nonsense conversation with God. I said, God, let me tell you this now. Let me wake up with my sanity. Let me wake up with my sanity, please. And I will not return.
I remember reading that bit in the book, and what preceded that was you flooding the whole wing with ash. Is that right?
Yeah.
And you said you were smoking, and so it sounded like, as someone who might have had some dalliances with smoking, that you had a bout of paranoia.
Yeah.
And I just don't know what that. I've never been to prison, so I don't know what that's like to be in a confined cell, going through that, and then have questioning your own sanity. So it must have been a really
I mean, the year before that, when I was in Chelmsford, my MP had raised questions in Parliament about me being in an adult institution.
Yeah,
I was in Camp Hill on the Isle of Wight, and as an adult prisoner when I was only 18, and got me transferred back to young offenders. But I went to Wandsworth and back to Chelmsford, young offenders, and it was December. My friend come to see me at that time. He bought me some hashes at the time, and it was Christmas. I flooded the wing with it, and everyone got stoned, and I got taken into solitary confinement and was later discharged because
they couldn't prove it.
Yeah.
You touch on not having a dad, that whole concept being just totally alien to you.
Yeah.
So I wonder what your thoughts are on how different your life would have been had you had that positive male role model around you.
I've no idea. So when I was between 4 and 10, I would fantasize about having a dad. Some of my friends had dads. There was one particular man, Mr. James, bless him, he's gone now, from the Curzon Crescent estate. And I would look at him and I think, do you know what, I'd want my father to be just like you, but once I became once I became 10 years old, and I joined this larger fraternity, and that became like my extended family, which is really, the people that I was rolling with when I was 10, 11, 12 years of age. Concept of father, that just disappeared. I'd found this extended family, and it was love, and we were doing some wild things, and we were growing into ourselves, so. It's
funny because you hear that narrative, it's a recurring theme now, so I almost wondered, with there being nothing new under the sun, when you see some of the issues that blight our community today, particularly with young black men, can you relate?
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and ask you for solutions, but do you see things that could be done differently? Because it looks like a lot of the things are still being done the same way.
I think,
It's just life, Pete.
No, I think young black men are angry, and there's reasons why they're angry. And I think that although I believe there's great opportunity today, I think there's a lack of direction. I think there's a lack of leadership.
Right.
I think there is a lack of role models. I think there is a lack of engagement, community engagement. So I think there's a lack of.
There's bits missing.
Yeah.
That just would help.
And that's why.
Einstein said that in every difficult situation lies opportunity. Throughout the whole book, that's a thing that I see you taking advantage of. You're in difficult situations, but you find opportunity. You seem to always turn a lemon into lemonade. Would that be fair? A fair assessment? Talk about that aspect of your character.
I mean, I suppose, put this into context. My last formal education took place when I was 11 years of age. The last time I was formally educated.
10 weeks in total, I think you said in the book, right?
Yeah, so about 10 weeks of formal education.
In your whole life?
In my whole life.
Amazing.
In my whole life, yeah. And in fact, I can't even recall
That's what you trying
any
to surmise.
education. I can't recall any education. But when I was in these juvenile establishments, so when I was in Send Detention Centre in Woking, Surrey, I remember being, we had to go through this very disciplined regime, and it was about order, it was about discipline, it was about routine. When I went to Feltham, Borstal, I learned office practice and typing. When I was on remand in Latchmere House, and when I was 16 in Feltham, Borstal, 15 turning 16, and I learned office practice and typing. And when I was in Ashford Remand Centre, I was 17 at the time, and I learned English.
It's funny you're touching on all these things because you're actually nicking my next question, but I want you to continue because I don't think I know too many people that have looked at their periods of incarceration and said, actually, I benefited from that.
It done me good.
Which is what you say in the book.
It done me good.
No, so talk about that and how it helped you to kind of
It done me good.
Yeah.
When I was in Ashford, you banged up. You got all the time in the world. What are you going to do? I learned English. I learned to read and write and English construction of sentences and paragraphs and grammar and so forth. And I thought, wow, it's just like I just found something. And then when I went on to Chelmsford, when I got my 2 years, when I was incarcerated for 2 years, I went to Chelmsford. I was reading fanatically newspapers. I read a dictionary when I was in Ashford. I was reading books, and I was just reading. And so when I got discharged, and I said to myself, look, this is it now. I have got to make a change and make that transition from the streets into a career. And I started my career life off in sales. And all that what I learned, I just collected that together and I committed that into what I was doing with regards to my sales. And I have to say, that was all I had in terms of an education, but it worked for me.
Imagine if you'd have had a formal education.
If I had who knows what I would have
Black
achieved
Trump right here.
with a formal education.
Billionaire.
Yeah.
You've turned your hand to so many different things.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that got me as well, was like, see an idea, do it. See an idea, do it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you didn't necessarily even have the expertise in that area. You just kind of had a feeling. So I love the way that you took a punt and backed yourself.
Yeah.
Because that's something that maybe a lot of black men need to do more. Back themselves, not look for that outside validation. But I wonder, PJ, gambler or just someone who's got a deep intuition?
You know what? It's that we've all got it. We've all got it. It's being in tune with your instinct. And there's something that you want to do. You consider it. You work the pros and the cons. You ask yourself, what have you got to lose? What have you got to gain? It's simple maths. And if it stacks up, you go ahead and you do it. But you do it with all that you have. You commit yourself. You get passionate about it. You make sure you're focused on it. And you make sure that you're ready to pay the sacrifices that you need to pay in order to get what you need to get.
Pride. There are many businesses you started before that, and there's a whole chunk of the book that's devoted to that. I'm going to home in on pride because from a black perspective, that's what interests me the most, and your interactions with The Voice. But I'm reading about the period that preceded Pride. You were
Yeah.
questioned on what you were doing for your people.
Yeah.
That seemed to really hammer something in your heart. Like you were sitting on the beach really pondering those words. So talk to me about becoming divorced from your blackness, because I'll be honest, I was reading and I couldn't see where it happened. I mean, you mentioned just being so immersed in the system that maybe you just ended up just forgot all about that. You just it's almost like you're not a number, you're not a free man, you're just part of the system. But when did you come divorced from your blackness till you didn't even realise that was the case?
Well, funny, because when I was like 10, I remember being faced with a choice. And the choice was, do you want to be a Rasta man? Or do you want to be a sticks man? And, a sticks man, as people may not know, a sticks man is, a committed thief, a pickpocket. And I thought about it, and I thought, I like that Rastaman vibe, I like that concept,
But broke,
etc. But I don't want to be broke, so I decided to be a sticks man. And so at that point, being black and being attached to that, there was no issues there. But I suppose it's when I went into care at age 11, and then I'm removed from my immediate environment. I'm in a complete alien environment. There's a lot of white boys there. My guardians are all white, and being young, you just adapt, and you just become a part of a new culture, a system, an existence. And that followed me right the way through to my juvenile years. And when I went into juvenile detention, there was no change. When I went to Feltham, that was no change. When I went through to young offenders, that was no change. And so when I then started my career life, that was no change. Then I was working with and socializing with white guys, and there was just no change there, and that took me up to age 24. And even when I sort of like left financial services and I started a sales training company, and I was selling sales training services to large corporates. It was all white people. Those that I employed around me were white, and those who I was selling to were white. So, but there was never an issue. Even when you know that you're not getting business because of the color of your skin. I was like, well,
you still didn't let it phase you.
That's how it is, Remember when you go back, when you're getting brutalized by the police officers and that, and that was a racist behaviour. So you're pretty much used to it. So when someone is like, don't want to do business with you because of your colour, it's okay. It's not an issue.
Whatever.
And so so reaching age 24 and like being in Jamaica, and I look around me and all I see is black people. And it just and then just everything else, as I explained in my book, about, the same food, the same people, the same colour, the same language, the same music, the patois, everything else, but
connected with the whole
not
energy.
In small amount, but en masse. That was an energy that just swept me, and
done the same thing to me too.
Yeah. And then it was at that time I really began to address that. Hold on a minute.
What am I doing?
Yeah, what am I doing? And it was because before that, when I was in Miami at this nightclub owned by Luke's from 2 Live Crew, and me and my friend who was in Miami, we were speaking to these girls, and they asked me what I did for a living, and I said to them that I publish a magazine, and the magazine that I published was distributed in 4- and 5-star hotels. in England, in central London, and they asked me what sort of magazine it is, and I told them, and they was disgusted. We thought you was going to say something like Ebony. So what are you doing for your community? What are you doing for your black people? And I looked at them like, oh, and they just walked away like, yeah, you know.
That was quite an amusing
that
part of the
rocks
book, actually, because that's what here you are, you know, in the pomp of your life, enjoying yourself out in Miami, you know, bit of money in the bank and that, and you thought you was the guy.
Yeah.
And they looked at you like, nah, you're not.
Yeah, that absolutely rocked me.
Yeah, and that really came across in the book as well.
Yeah.
Like I got it, I understood. You know?
Yeah.
So that whole, you know, journey to Jamaica, and then after that, all of that realization. You were still quite young, 24, 25. I mean, I know you've lived a hell of a life up until that point, but 24, 25, to come back and say, right, I'm going to jump into this industry two-footed, it's not something most people do.
You're right, you know. I suppose I was led. You know, I was in Jamaica, went up to Dunn's River. It must have been Dunn's River. Because when I came down, the epiphany was just dropped. It said, right, I'm going to do this magazine.
And you threw everything into it, didn't you?
Everything, yeah.
You threw everything. And even that was despite some elder statesmen who I've worked with, and some of them have blazed the trail for me, giving me a green light, the Ron Shillingfords of this world. Even when they were telling you, nah, take your money and go and do something else, you just wouldn't be told, would you?
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought that was strange. Let's move on to the whole notion of business, because given the amount of businesses that you've had, do you mentor? Do you mentor any business types, aspirational people who want to?
Not in a formal sense. There are people that are in my network.
Yeah.
I've got a small network. There are people in my network, and I connect with them, find out what they're doing, how they're doing it, and I give them some leadership, some guidance.
Have you ever thought about it? Because like you have some gems, and I'd like you to share some, if you can recall any, on just getting into business. You've mentioned one already. If you're going to do it, commit with everything. I read Think and Grow Rich when I was like 17.
Yeah.
I read all of those books when I was 16, 17 that you mentioned in there. So I'm just trying to give you a type of insight into how my mind works. There are a lot of youngsters out here who are not going to read them books. So if there was a couple, say a top three, and if the top one was, once you've identified the business, commit to it, go for it, what would be the next couple of bits of advice you'd give to an aspirational business person?
Do you know what? I don't think there's any one book that's going to do it, and I don't think there's any one piece of advice that's going to do it. But I think a collection of books, the right books, and I think a collection of experiences will get you there. Yeah, I think the most important thing is it's a journey. It's not going to happen overnight. You know, you have to be prepared to go the distance. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And when you begin, that's when you start to collect your experiences. And it's the experiences that actually sets you up for something greater and further down the road. But it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And I always say that, you know, it's not the fruit, it is the root. Yeah. So spend time on the root, and you will then begin to enjoy the fruit. And by saying that, I mean you've got to go into the soil, and you're committing your labour, yeah. And you've got to be prepared to spend most of your time in that soil for as long as necessary, nurturing that soil. Okay, nurturing that soil so the root is strong, the root is good, and that root will produce the fruit. But you don't concentrate on the fruit, concentrate on the root. But in order to get the best root, you've got to make sure that you are in that soil and you're just literally, you know, nurturing that root. And when you're in the soil, yeah, that also means there's a certain energy you need to be connected into, and there's a certain energy you need to disconnect from. And so if those around you, if their mind state isn't right, you've got to disconnect from them. If the attitude isn't right, you've got to disconnect from them. If they don't share the same aspirations as you, you've got to disconnect from them. And there's so much to this thing, but, you know, you have to start in the soil and be absolutely committed at what you're doing. If you're not going to be 100% committed at what you're doing, don't do it.
Don't do it.
And guess what? If you're 100% committed at what you're doing and you really believe in what you're doing, you will commit everything to ensure that what it is that you're pursuing succeeds. And the moment you have to question yourself about your commitment,
come out of it.
Get out of it.
Do something else.
Yeah.
You're a father.
Mm-hmm.
I was touched when I read about your eldest and suicide. That whole period of 2000, to be honest with you, those two points in the book really touched me. That, your daughter, and 2000, you just couldn't catch a break, mate. Life was just throwing it all at you. So I found myself getting through that period of the book, wondering, because you talk about depression, you talk about your fear of mental illness. Do you look back now and wonder how you got through it?
Yeah.
How did you find the mental fortitude to keep boring through?
You'll be amazed at what you can get through. You know, you will be amazed. You know, I think if I were to stop at any point in time and absorb what I was going through, I probably would have drowned in what I was going through. Yeah. And when I was going through what I was going through, I just had to just keep on going. You just have to have this unshakable faith, this belief, this commitment, this drive, this energy, and you just got to keep on going. And everything will come, everything will happen. The universe will work with you. You know, just maintain that positive flow. Just keep going, because you just know that everything is a season. It's not going to be permanent. It's a season. So keep on tunneling through and just keep on going through. And the doors that need to be closed behind you will close. The doors that need to be open ahead of you, those doors will open. Because when you take action, I absolutely believe the universe backs up that action. It fortifies it. Yeah, and it's something you've just got to believe in, and just commit to it. And even when after you've committed to it, you don't see no evidence from your hard work or from your commitment, from your direction, you just got to keep on going. Just got to keep on going, and it will come. The doors will open. So, like I say, the doors will open. You just got to keep on going. Don't stop.
Do you? It's just a straight question, right? Do you think the darkness in your life would have descended upon you, be a man or not be a man?
That's a good one.
I had to ask like that because
that's a good one. You know what?
You might have no way of knowing. You know what I mean?
You know what? I have to say.
Yeah.
I absolutely got to say it. I do not know.
Right.
You know, one thing I do know. One thing I'm so committed with my faith in God.
No, yeah.
Yeah? And everything I put down to God and through God and because of God and so forth. But I can't answer that question because I really don't know. All I know that I engaged in that practice. Yeah, I did. Yeah. Hands up. Yeah. You know?
It's big of you to admit it. A lot of people would not admit that.
Listen, I was at a place in my life I've never ever been to before. I was extremely depressed. There's so much situations going on around my life at the time, personally, commercially, in every direction.
The book makes that clear.
Yeah. Some people will turn to alcohol. Some people may turn to may turn to drugs. I got exposed to obeah at that point in time. Yeah. And I engaged.
For someone who, early in your formative years, you were so invested in church. To see an Obeah man it's quite a big decision, isn't it? You've almost come full circle as you're back as a man of God. Like, it's,
Yeah.
you know, because you touched on it in this interview, but I read it in the book. There were some Sundays where you went church from 9 o'clock in the morning clean till 11 o'clock in the night, and 2 or 3 different churches at that. So when you got to the Obeah bit, I thought, well, that must have been a real. You've explained it now, insofar as you was in a situation you've never been in, probably haven't been in since. But the decision to go up that mountain,
you know what it was?
bypass that queue of people. Yo, you had loads of times to get there, and even when you got there, he turned around and he didn't want to do it, did he?
Yeah, he said,
I'll tell you why.
I'm going to read you.
Yeah. And that must have been strange for the Obeah man to turn around and say, oh no, God's got his hand on your shoulder. You don't need me. And you still took what he was taking anyway. That showed me what kind of situation you were in.
Yeah. Because, you know, like, as you say, I used to go to church 4 times a day on a Sunday. We used to walk 5 miles to the first church, Baptist church, then walk to the Salvation Army church, then then the van used to come for us in the afternoon, take us to the Pentecostal church, come back in the evening time, take us again to the Pentecostal church. Then Wednesdays we used to go to church with my school, was a Church of England school, so I went to church every single Wednesday. And then when I went into criminality, I kind of disconnected from my faith. But when I sort of like returned, well, when I left criminality, I kind of like returned to my faith. And in all that I did, I used to always pray and always chant and always believe in God will bring me through any situation. And He used to always deliver on time through every single situation. And there was one time when, you know, I relapsed and I fell back. It was with that MSTD fraud situation.
Yeah, that was unfortunate.
In '99, and I found myself
14 years on.
14 years,
yeah.
14 years of, you know,
clean,
going one
building,
way.
earning good money.
Yeah,
putting people on.
Yeah.
The judge was feisty.
He was.
Wait, I couldn't believe it.
But he gave me a bly.
In the end.
Yeah.
But he was cheeky though. You had to go through the ringer to get it.
He could have given me 4 years and he gave me 18 months. I got to thank him still. You know, I got to thank him still. And to be honest with you, you know, during that time, I've had some judges that have been good to me, you know. And anyway, you know, on this occasion, I remember being in my cell and I've been saying, God, like, what's going on here, man? How comes I'm here after 14 years? And I remember reading this book about giving God his P45 when I was in jail. And I thought, yeah, man, it's like, that's apt. I think, like, it's time, like, God got his P45. And when I come out of jail, this was in January 2000, I left my faith behind. And that's when all that madness started, in 2000.
Right.
And so when I was met with that decision with the Obeah man, it wasn't that hard of a decision to make.
It was part of that particular journey.
Yeah. But by the end of that year, I had to denounce what I did and re-invite God back into my life.
You really went off the rails. I mean, your brethren were abandoning you left, right and centre, but not.
Yeah.
It's like they were telling you were doing a lot of madness, but still kept you at arm's length.
Yeah.
Like your day ones, you know, or some of the business people you were working with at the time. Phil, and all these characters people are going to get familiar with when they read the book. But did you insist that your other children grow up knowing God, church?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know you're big on. I know your view on church has evolved. Read that in the book as well. But there was a time you recognised its value. So I just wondered if how you've articulated that lesson to your children.
Yeah, I mean, the same upbringing that I had, I tried my very best to give that to my children. So I've introduced them to God. I've introduced them to church. More importantly, I've introduced them to faith. Whereas I'm no longer in church. For me, church is in my heart, you know. Church is in how I behave and how I treat people, you know. And that's what I instill in my children. And so that's, for me, that's very important.
You obviously believe that seeing the world's important as well. There was that conversation you had earlier in the book with somebody who travelled and just made you aware of the fact that you hadn't been out of NW10 really.
Yeah.
as a lot of people hadn't and probably wouldn't. So talk about traveling, because of all the places you listed, I was like, okay, I ain't done that. Where haven't you been? And where would you like to go? What's still on the bucket list?
I mean, I've been to nearly 50 countries. And it's been a real privilege to literally go around the world and see different people, different cultures, go into their homes, sit down with them, eat like local food. And and most of the places I've been to, I've been on my own.
Right. Good luck.
Yeah, I've been on my own, and sometimes I'll go with my children or with friends, but most of the times I've traveled on my own. So places like, China, Hong Kong, Singapore, Taiwan.
You had some fun in Singapore, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
I won't spoil it for the readers.
No, though.
Yeah, I won't.
I love Africa, so the first time I went to Africa was Zimbabwe.
Yeah, I read that stuff. I'm going to get to that in a minute.
Okay, South Africa, Ghana, Sierra Leone. I've been to Ethiopia now a few times, and
you mentioned that's one. You like Ethiopia, right?
Yeah, I love Ethiopia. Yeah. I think that's the capital of Africa still. I've been all over Europe, America. I'm not really fond of that place these days, but so I've just been privileged.
Yeah,
it's been an honor.
Your 50th seemed like a movie. Did you spend long planning that, or was that just like, this is what I'm doing?
Do you know what? When the year before, so I think 6 months leading up to my 50th, I then had an idea of what I wanted to do and so forth, and I put a budget to it.
Because that's how you do.
I put a budget to 50 grand, and I spent the year celebrating my birthday, but that budget was blown out.
You doubled it?
Yeah, I doubled it, yeah. I had a great time.
Well, you lived to 100.
Epic. Me too.
Yeah,
me too.
It seemed epic, man. And I guess I'm talking about the latter stages of the book now, but I loved what you did for Marcia.
Okay.
No, I love that. You know what I mean? That ride or die, she rode with you.
She did, man.
She rode with you,
man. She'd been with me before I met my wife, obviously before my children. She's been with me for 28 years now.
That's loyalty.
Yeah.
Can't put a price on that, really, can you?
Cannot.
Because she's seen you at your best and your worst.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And she's given me all she's got to give, everything. And she's like, they don't come more loyal, more solid, more supportive than Marcia. They really don't.
Maddest bits. The trip to Zimbabwe. That was crazy.
Yeah.
Meeting that guy, the way he was on your case. That was a madness. Now, why didn't you sell? Do you regret that?
Not at all.
Do you not?
Not at all.
I think that one would have banned me though.
Not at all. Because I think he had another motive.
He definitely did.
Yeah. And I was in the soil.
All right.
I was in the soil with Leroy, with Faye and William. This is the Pride team. The sacrifices we made to get each issue of Pride out, to pay journalists and photographers and printers and so forth. The sacrifices we made.
Yeah. When you described prepping pages by cutouts and sticking it on, I thought, wow, it was really rudimentary.
Yeah, it was before desktop publishing. Yeah. We were still knocking around with Amstrad PCs.
So I mean, no expertise, no nothing, but here you are, knee deep in it, in the soil, as you say.
Yeah.
What was the best bit of that trip to Zimbabwe? Because I mean, just reading through it, I was hooked. From getting on first class to everybody knowing him, to get into to all the history of what was going on with the country at that time and how he came across his fortune. But what was the best bit?
For me, I hope I don't get emotional now, but for me, it's like we were driving from Harare to Mount Darwin, which is in a country. And as I approached Mount Darwin, you had 'cause the outriders went ahead to say that a visitor was coming. me being the visitor, and my host being this multi-millionaire, you know, my host being this multi-millionaire businessman and politician and so forth. And whenever I think about it and talk about it, I get emotional.
Yeah.
And like they sent outriders ahead because we was in a convoy, and they sent outriders ahead to say this visitor is coming.
That's amazing, man.
You know,
that must blew your mind.
yeah. And when we came into the village, yeah, you had the women on one side of the road. It's a dirt road, right? So you had the women on one side of the dirt road, and you had the men on the other side of the dirt road, and they were singing, and they were clapping, and they were dancing. And I looked, and I said, "Who's this for? You?" He goes, "No." And like, this is for you.
Just welcoming.
This is how we welcome you to our home. And as I got out that Mercedes, my legs just collapsed beneath me, and I just fell to that red soil ground and just kissed the ground. Yeah, that was like, that's my Africa.
Yeah, of course.
That's my Africa, you know, and that's why, like, regardless of what the media or anybody wants to say about Zimbabwe, that's my Africa. My Africa. Yeah.
I'm going through what I perceive to be some of the stand-up bits, right? And there were many.
Yeah.
You know, whittling it down wasn't easy. You blame yourself for how Georgina's life panned out.
Yeah.
And I kept going back to the beginning, like, she didn't even tell you.
Yeah.
You know? So I couldn't work out how you... Obviously, you know who you were at that moment in your life, and you know the impact, and you couldn't portray it in a book to a certain degree, but real life is real life. How do you get to the end of the book though and blame yourself for how hers panned out, given that she didn't give you an opportunity to get involved?
You know, you have to remember that when Georgina fell pregnant, we were both 13 years old. And when my daughter Shanika was born, when she gave birth to Shanika, we were both 14 years old.
Kids.
Yeah, children.
Kids.
And I think her decisions, as she was a mother, although a 14-year-old mother, I think her decisions were removed from her and were made for her, you know.
Right.
And so I think others made her decisions for her. They made those decisions to protect her. Did it protect her? Was it in her best interest? Was it in Shanika's best interest? I don't think my interest mattered at that time. And so I don't hold it against her. Bless her, she's gone now. I don't hold it against her. No, I can't hold it against her.
No, I wondered because obviously you touched on it just now. She's gone, and the day that she went, August 13.
Yeah, so she went on. So she, Shanika was born August the 12th.
Yeah, 12th, sorry.
And we lost Georgina on the day that Shanika was born, on August the 12th. And I thought, you chose this day to draw your last breath, day when we brought Shanika into this world. And when Shanika passed away, I never remember. I just, for me, the day that I remember is the day of her birth, the 12th of August, and not the day when she passed away, the 13th of September. And so that day is special to me.
Of course.
But now, because Georgina decided to take that day to leave us, to join her daughter, I just think that it's still special to me, but it's special in a very different way now.
It must be hard to articulate how you feel on that day. Must be hard. How many cars you crashed, PJ? How many? Like, because I lost count in it.
I just smashed up my car a couple of months ago, as it goes.
What's
An
wrong with you in
AMG.
cars, bruv? You be smashing up whips since the beginning.
Yeah, I've got this thing with speed. I've got this fascination about speed. You know, I like powerful cars. I like supercars, but I do like to drive at high speed. And I put this out there that I don't know. It's just a thing about me and speed and cars.
It's just PJ.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's part of you.
Yeah.
Stay careful. Yeah, I want to celebrate your 100th. Yeah. Be
Dear
careful.
God, I'll be around.
See what happened to the old Duke the other day, right?
Yeah.
He's giving back his license now, by the way.
So I've heard.
Right. I want Lawrence to be the most influential person in your life, based on what I read in the book. But is he? Because there was a moment when Lawrence, you refer to him being on something different, and you kind of taking a while to tap into that mindset. Early in the book, with regards to, just where they were going, not on the road or the badness and whatnot. That's Ray's brother, right?
Okay, yeah.
So, I remember you pointedly, saying that you couldn't work out, well, it took you a while to get round what they was trying to tell you, but it's make something of your life, essentially. If it weren't Lawrence, who in the book is, aside from your mum, of course, because we can clearly tell that she's the most important person in your life, but who was the most significant contributor to the person who PJ is now, that's mentioned in the book, that is?
You know what? There's no single person.
Nah?
But you know what? Along the journey.
Yeah.
Along, as I've set out in the book,
Yeah.
along the journey, they all
As significant.
they all made their contribution.
Right.
But Lawrence Fearon's contribution, that was very significant at the time, because that helped with the transition from criminality to industry. So that was a very significant contribution at the time.
And one other thing that kind of jumped out at me was you mentioned I think it was Sri Lankan and Italian girl that you had in America.
Yeah.
Is that right? Sri Lankan and Italian. Now, I of all the women you mentioned in the book,
Sri Lankan Portuguese.
Portuguese, right? Yeah. I see it. I knew there was some red blood in there. Her mention was very cursory and out of the blue, but she must have left an impact on you.
She did.
Yeah, she must have done.
She did.
Yeah, she must have done. All right, leave that alone. For me, everything I read suggested that you, sir, are God blessed.
Yeah.
Even the Obi man told you that.
Yeah.
So at this point in your life, at this juncture, is that what you can conclude, that you must be guiding me?
100%.
It must be like. And have you worked out what for? Have you been blessed with that insight?
I believe I know.
You do? Interesting. Can you share?
Not yet, no.
See that? See, it took us an hour and a bit to get here. When are you gonna share? When it's tangible, when you can touch it.
When it's the right time.
Yeah, you'll know. You'll feel it.
When it's the right time. I'm here for a much greater calling. And I'm gonna, I'm gonna surrender to that calling.
I spoke to another friend of mine recently who seems to be in a similar place to yourself, and he said, you know what, Dre, at the beginning of the year, he said to me, I'm going to activate my blessings.
Yeah.
And I understood him. I get it. So I guess that's what you're gonna do one day.
Yeah, for sure.
Activate your blessings. Well, look, my last observation, muse, and kind of references. You start this book as a 3-year-old who is led literally astray.
Yeah.
You end up a successful businessman. You quote Jamaican phrases throughout under the air, and there's a lot of Jamaican phrases that you coin throughout. Your mum was a savvy, intuitive, being that sometimes I think to myself, wow, the earth was blessed to have them.
Yeah.
So I want to end with this. There's a saying that what's gone bad a morning can't come good a evening.
True.
That's not the case with you, though, is it? If that dalliance that you referred to as a 3-year-old, and I don't want to spoil it for the readers, because it was a great way to start the book as well, hooked me in. If that's the beginning, the end is, so far, the ending so far.
Well, you
You've
know
come
the
good.
others saying that, every dog having 4 o'clock.
Yes. Yes, true.
So you have to come back home.
Yeah. Of course, of course. What would you like people to take from this book, EJ?
Just know that, look, it's not over. Whatever you are going through, you can turn that situation around. I say that I was taught, not taught, it was said to me, and I imbibed it, I believe it, I took it on board, that God can unscramble a scrambled egg. Have faith. Don't give up on what you're doing. Most importantly, be prepared to toil. Get in that soil. Be prepared to toil. As I say, you reap what you sow. Yeah? Everything that's happened to us today is a result of what we have done or failed to do yesterday or previously. So if you want to determine your outcome, get in the soil and start sowing. Thanks for your time, my brother. Pleasure. We really appreciate it. Pleasure. Pleasure, man. Pleasure, Dre. Pleasure.